Hello and welcome to Practical Inclusion. I know it's been a while, but we are back and with a fantastic speaker again this time. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people, that's whose land that I get to live, work and play on, and pay my respects to any elders past or present who are watching today, either live or on the replay. Always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Exciting times. I was very, very disappointed on Saturday. I was part of the Better Together conference, which was happening on Wadawurrung country, which for those who don't know is basically a queer conference. Every topic is presented by queer identifying folks on queer topics. It's a fantastic 2 days, but I got to attend the first day, and then the second day I was home looking after a kid with COVID. So I unfortunately missed our guest's talk that I was so desperate to attend so that we could have an even more deeper conversation from that. But that's the context. I'm excited that I still get to hear from you, Anastasia. So I'm really happy about that and devastated that I missed it on Saturday. As typical in this show, if you are watching on LinkedIn, it seems where there's been an error with Facebook, so you won't be watching on there today. But if you're watching on LinkedIn, you can ask questions or make comments, and I will absolutely direct them into our chat today. So please do that, even if you're watching on the replay, because we'll get on and type some responses as well. So please encourage you to engage that way. But as usual, I'm going to get my guest to introduce herself today through story with you. So I'll hand it straight over to you, Anastasia.
Thank you, Bree. So my name is Anastasia Lay, pronounced she, her. Before I proceed any further, I would also like to acknowledge the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people, because right now one of my offices is on that land of the Kulin Nation. I would like to pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. In addition to this, of course, we can't talk about rainbow masks without really paying respect to LGBTIQ+, sister girls, brother boys, leaders past, present, and emerging. It's a significant work that they've done, and we are continuously working on to improve, overall society. So for me, I guess I can introduce myself with a person wearing multiple different hats. I've been very privileged with my life journey. Of course, I am a proud woman of trans, of forcibly displaced, as well as culturally and linguistically marginalized experience, and somehow I managed to be be one of the national employment service provider, and 2 years ago I was their casual receptionist, and now I'm their national community engagement partner. In addition to that, I got to have the privilege to work with Victoria Police on really looking at processing and how they can be more transgender diverse and intersex friendly, as well as on advisory groups for different local government areas, especially in the in the Western metro areas. I'm also a board member for a few LGBTIQ+ organization. So yeah, I'm in a very privileged position in a way, and yeah, I'm just more than happy to share and my perspective when it comes, and my insights as well on working with the more intersectional people. Because to me, I think having worked in employment service, having worked with the public sector and social services, I think people, almost everybody is intersectional in a way, but of course there are those of us who are a bit more intersectional than the others. And so, yeah, I'm more than happy to answer those questions as well. Yeah. So that's it about me for now.
Yeah, thank you. And there's like multiple parts there that I'd love to draw out in our conversation. Maybe we can start with, I often come across working in the consulting space, organizations that say, yep, we want to build a gender equality plan first. And then next year we're going to do LGBTIQA+, and then the year after we might do disability, and they kind of stage it in this siloed approach to inclusion. Can you talk a little bit about why intersectionality first, and how that might look in practice, particularly with those in those contexts that you've spoke about being involved in?
And oh my gosh, like you should go right in to that big topic, and that's the sad part, right? Because like even with some of the organizations I'm involved with, I explain to them when you talk about gender equality, like literally the term trans and gender diverse or trans and gender expansive, that's gender right there. Then why can't we? Why does the anything to support trans employees have to come from the LGBTI plus budget and not the other one? You know, and all of those things. And why can't the group work together? And at the same time, we have to understand that I think the moment we keep reminding ourselves that there's a distinction between sexuality identities and gender identities, then I think that's where the LGBTIQ plus working group or employees resources group can work better with the gender equality groups. Because at the end of the day, I think those sexuality and gender identity, they are very fundamental human aspects. And if we do not do either, like if we do not bring the two together effectively and efficiently, we're not exactly achieving equality or equity for anybody at the end of the day. And you know, yeah, so it's really interesting, and I think there should be a bit more extension to the gender equality index where we need to emphasize better on the definition of women, and then on the definition of non-binary or other than just women and men. And then we need to then start to identify, like, you know, like understanding that, you know, this work is about equality, this work is about inclusion, and essentially it's about celebrating diversity through supporting the most impacted and the most marginalized. I think when we start really center everything towards the most impacted, really understand and keeping up with the trend, you know, keeping up with social issues that, you know, the most marginalized people face, then we can achieve better diversity and inclusion work in the workplace. I hope that makes sense, because, you know, I do have ADHD. I'm in the process of getting that diagnosed and getting medication for it, so I can go on tangent from time to time. But I think it's important to remind ourselves that we are all part of systemic issues. And so if we do not work on intersectionality and really bring all of these working groups together, all of these reference groups together, then we are not really addressing critical issues within the workforce as well as in the society.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I've written down that most impacted. I really like that phrasing in terms of how we can advocate for organisations to focus their work on, as you say, those who are most impacted by the marginalisation.
Because even for me, when I deliver internal training for staff for cultural awareness and cultural competence, like, you know, because I think one of the downfall for D&I or DEI sector is that the media kind of plays against that from most of the time. They have their own agenda. And I always relate back to the fact that we have been practicing inclusion for a very long time. So let's talk about gluten-free products. Let's talk about dairy-free products. How many people out there are actually, you know, actually have celiac disease? But then we still consume them. We still create those products because, again, that's just a simple act of inclusion that can benefit everybody. So when I really bring it down to that level and explain to them, you know, all of those things, and it's actually, I get better response as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I like it. You've nicely put a little segue in there around food. I'm keen to explore to hear from you the connection between food and community, and what role, I guess, food can play in creating that inclusion and belonging for people.
Yeah. So thank you. So clearly you've done some research on me. I have a show on Joy 949, and we use food as a conduit, as a can opener to talk about different issues. The reason why I came up with this show, and the idea, like I was the person behind this idea, is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter like whether you're black or white or Caucasian or Southeast Asian. It doesn't matter whether you're queer, non-queer. Everybody truly eats, and it's food always brings people together. Like most people love eating. Of course, some of us may have some strong reaction to eating and celebration, but usually most people love eating, and it's such a it's in food has all and cooking has always been part of human evolution. you know uh, and so when we bring it back to that level and start incorporating stories about transgender diverse people in ancient time, like the high priestesses that you still see in some indigenous societies in Vietnam, in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, where transgender expensive people are still very highly regarded. Those sort of things really convey a positive and reinforce some positive messaging. And really, and I think food, and right now with current socioeconomic, landscape, food is just a perfect way to really raise awareness about multiple different things. I think people care more about food security, care more about shelter security than who is using the public bathroom or whatever. I think that right now people are focusing on that more so than that. And also for me, I'm in my position in my organization. I work with a lot of people who they do not even. I might be the first trans person they've ever met, or and these people, unfortunately, again because of systemic issues and intrapersonal barriers, they might not have access to the education and the social awareness needed. And so I've been in the position where I can provide them guidance to shelter. I can provide them guidance to sustenance. And as a person, as a woman of trans and color experience, I think it's really also helped opening them up to the world and really break down all of these stereotypings that they may have, all of this preconceived notion about trans women, especially Southeast Asian trans women. So yeah.
I love that you've described there that visibility, I guess, and the power of connecting with people who have different lived experience. And one of the things I hear constantly with organisations is that leaders are really concerned about putting emotional and cultural load on people who are part of a minority group in their organisation. So they want to hear voices and they want to amplify voices of those who are most impacted, but they're really concerned about putting all of that weight and load on the shoulders of people. What are your thoughts around that? And I know it's a bit of a difficult question, but what could organisations do to kind of balance that?
I think at the end of the day, again, you raised some very valid points there. My organization, they know that they should not rely on like one of the more intersectional staff across 4,000 staff and 110 offices. But at the end of the day, when you look at the LGBTIQI plus community or the advocacy work, usually it's the same faces for decades. And I know we talk a lot about leadership responsibility and and personally and even for yourself, for example, I'm pretty sure we kind of want to pass on the torch and let the next generation lead. And then this is something that I constantly question myself as well, is that have I created too much of a platform? Have I created too much comfort for the next generation? And that's why they are reluctant to get involved. They are too comfortable with the way things are. I do question those things. And with my organization, they are very mindful of the energy expenditure I put in. Because not only I am the national engagement partner for one of the biggest division, but I'm also the wider org Pride Chair, and I'm part of the Diversity and Inclusion Council within the wider organization. And so what they've done, and I think this is something that they really take my advice on, we really need to introduce equity and diversity in our governance structure, in our senior and executive leadership level. If we do not have somebody in those positions, then perhaps you can be the allies really advocating for this. So an act as simple as, the executive leaders, they just wear the rainbow lanyard, they wear the indigenous lanyard whenever they have a national conference or meeting. Just a simple act like that. And then hopefully we can introduce cultural performance to middle management, or that's my idea. Because at the end of the day, as the community service provider, and also given the current global financial state, community is everything. Community is where people get access to food. Community is where people get access to connection. So really having a deeper understanding and having a workforce that is culturally competent is rather crucial for our business plan and our operation plan these days. So just even introducing that, introduce cultural performance, encouraging management, and encourage management to transform into leadership, I think are very pivotal in the business growth sort of thing these days. That's what I believe in, especially again in community service sector, especially in social services sector, especially in public sector. We cannot rely on numeric measures anymore, and therefore the management mindset is no longer there, and that has to come from the top. So I'm very lucky that my executive leadership and my senior leadership here really take on my advice, really listen to the advice of other, more marginalized staff, and really shape up our business plan and our strategies as well. And I think I really hope that other organizations can do the same thing, because at the end of the day, I think our sectors are there to really support people. And if we stay out of touch with people, then it also impacts our business.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be using some of that too. Fantastic. I'm conscious of time. I'm really key to hear from you. 3, but it doesn't have to be 3, any number you like. Key tips for organizations to, I guess, prioritize and create inclusion for people who do have intersecting identities, and perhaps identities like your own.
Yeah, so I think first of all, I understand that, like the business hierarchy has always been the pyramid. And we thankfully, as a society, most sectors, most industry now, they no longer just, feed the top. It's about strengthening the base, the floor staff, because at the end of the day, most likely those floor staff are the ones with passion, and usually those passion staff, they have the lived experience, like myself, for example. So tend the very base, tend the foundation of your organization. Really listen to the floor staff, because they are the ones impacted by your decision. They understand how your decision would impact your clients. So really listen to them, and maybe create a council of, and that's something that I have also suggested to my wider organization to look at, and they are doing it, is having community reference group or having an employee council, for example, like having different floor staff members across divisions. Depends on the scale of your business. We have about 13 divisions, for example. Then we have 13 representatives from all these divisions, especially floor staff level, to give some input. and ask them to revise our strategies. Really ask them, what do you think about this, and guide them with that as well. Like, give them really open to listen to them and understand that it's not about you being criticized with your ideas, especially from a leadership level, but it's about how am I going to turn this feedback and how can I guide these very people who generate income for the organization to to build a better workplace for everybody, to build a better service delivery system for everybody. So that's the first thing.
Great.
I think the second thing is I understand that a lot of the things these days have been sensationalized and can be quite political, the forcibly displaced issues, the queer issues, but really have a look at your own values. If your values have inclusion in it, then you really again have to remind yourself what inclusion really means, and make us really stand up to it. Commit to your values and your statement, and showcase your visible support to people. I think that's important, and I think and the third thing is, I think we should stop looking at that sort of siloed mindset and angles where, all right, the LGBTIQA plus working group should have just LGBTIQA plus staff, or the life stages group should have like the more senior staff. At the end of the day, we are here to the work we do is to improve the workplace, to improve the society. So we should stop siloing, and perhaps for me, I've just introduced another term to my work, we are looking for equality, equity, and inclusion passionate people. So that way, not only it provides safety for those who might identify in these cohorts, but also that expands to allies and really tap into the passion of people. And then introducing perhaps like a passionate KPI, or being more flexible with your HR processing and practices. So then these passionate people can really contribute, because people are the greatest asset that an organization can have. And especially if you're in the public sector or you're in the community service sector, then we want to keep those employees with us. So we need to make sure that we have different ways and strategies to keep them with us and help them to maintain the passion and to sustain the work. So so I think HR processing is another key. I've made a recommendation for some of the organizations as well as my workplace to perhaps starting to have like permanent part-time role available for 12 months, for example, and then we start building the capacity for that person, because those part-time roles could mean single parents, could mean somebody who is dealing with tremendous mental health issues, could mean somebody with some restriction on their visa status, because I understand that quite well myself. All of those things. Somebody who might have may need some gender realignment surgery. So those just simple part-time roles like that can really add more values to the org down the line as well, and impact. Yeah.
Love it. So I've got listen, look at your values, which I just love both of them. What do your values actually mean, and stop siloing, and we'll add that flexible HR policies and practices, because absolutely 100%. We have a question that's come through from Anna. Thanks, Anna. Do you have any advice around how we can ensure that we do not inadvertently exclude specific groups as a result of policies and actions that create challenging conversations and differing points of view?
Oh yeah. I feel that. Thank you, Anna. From Anna, thank you, Anna, for this question. Like, because we have 4,000 staff, and so of course we have very diverse view as well. And so for me, I have to admit from time to time, because I get to work quite closely with our chief of people, and sometimes we really want to go militant, but at the end of the day, it's about taking them on the journey with us. And I think with the policies aspect, recently we are looking at changing our HR processing and our practices to be more staff focused than protecting the company focused. I think that itself is great. So then we focus on the person and see how that impacts them. I think this is a part where intersectionality can play a tremendous role in policy shaping as well, because usually, we right now, I think, for example, trans and queer Muslims, they exist, they are working, so perhaps we can ask them on how to engage better with people who share the same faith and use the same story. Personally, for myself, because I leverage my forcibly displaced background, my former asylum seeking status, with my training to make myself a bit more relatable to the staff who might not agree with my existence, but then they share the experience. So I think having policies and practices that kind of work on points of similarity and comments rather than positive difference, I think would be great. It's a great tool to use that, because at the end of the day, as I have said before, we are all victims of systemic oppression. So relate to those oppression the same point of oppression. Yeah.
I feel like I could spend another half hour talking to you about just that answer to that question. That's brilliant. Maybe we'll do that another time. But we are out of time, and I want to say thank you so much for sharing those thoughts and ideas and practices that you are implementing, not only within the organisation you're in, but also within all those other organisations that you're advising to or sitting on the board of. So, a huge thanks for your advocacy and for sharing that all with us today. Thanks everybody for listening in. I can see some comments coming through, and we'll jump on and have a look and respond to them as well. But thanks for listening in. I think there's going to be one more LinkedIn Live episode in about a month or so. And then I'm going to go on a bit of a hiatus of these for a while. So I won't say they won't come back, but they might just have a little bit of a break for a bit. So thank you. If you're wanting to get more of your practical inclusion kind of binging in, all of these episodes are on YouTube. So you can go and catch up on all of the brilliant people who have shared their stories and their ideas around inclusion on the Bree Gorman Consulting YouTube channel. So check that out. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for coming on, Anastasia.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.